I can explain to you, Josiah, they are not a political show like David Pakman would be. They are very specifically a comedy show, but they do cover politics and current news, and they always make it clear their big inspiration for starting a YouTube channel was from the Disney movie Lilo and Stitch.
That is everything you said is
so
true.
much sense.
All
Ohana.
true.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Well, first of all of that is not true. Sitch, we're live in front of Destiny's audience.
This is a comedy show.
Look,
okay?
if you
What
want
do
that
mean?
meme to spread, you just look. You have to tell everyone.
I kind of do want that meme to spread. Yes.
Okay.
We have Sitch here, who is off camera because he doesn't show himself. Very cowardly. We also have his co-host.
Wow! Wait, just moves on, just hits me like that, and then moves on. Oh my god!
Co-host
Hit and
of
run.
The Right Wing Podcast, Adam Friendon. Both of them run a show. It's comedy based, and they also are producing their own comic book series. Correct?
Yes. Okay. Thank you for
Yes.
mentioning that.
Thank you.
Nice.
And then we also have Destiny, the Omniliberal. He's a part-time streamer. Fortunate enough to be able to fit us into his schedule. And lastly, Josiah, Pondering Politics, also part-time streamer. I do want to start, though, with Adam and Sitch to really explain what right-wing podcast hosts are. Where did that start?
Well, look, we don't have a right-wing podcast. We're often characterized as right-wingers, I think wrongly by people on the left. I think people on the left, they have this stereotype for right-wingers that all right-wingers are greedy racists. And if you don't believe that, then you aren't truly on the left. And also, when they call you right-wing, that's really what they're doing. They're calling you a greedy racist. So I think a good place to start this discussion is probably to ask everyone, do you think all or even most right-wingers are greedy racists?
No.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I don't think so.
I guess we're ending the show. Thanks, Chaeiry. That was great.
Cool.
We did it.
Cool. I think some people will actually object to that. So obviously, but yeah. So I don't.
Greedy. Is it the grifting?
I don't necessarily
grifting labels that got thrown at them.
I'm not sure. I think they use this stereotype because they're super tribalistic. So they like to vilify obviously conservatives. I mean,
Well,
they
to be
do
fair,
believe
like
it.
everybody's pretty tribalistic.
Yeah, do you think that's something that's exclusive to the left or
This is the
leftist
thing.
commentators?
We're not. I disagree that everyone is tribalistic. Like we try not to be tribalistic, and that's one of the reasons why we kind of get this label as right-wing podcast, because we don't vilify conservatives, and therefore everybody assumes that we are conservatives. Like I was going to ask, who is the conservative on this panel? Because I'm not a conservative. I'm a liberal.
Yeah, so when I said everybody's like that, I mean like all like political factions are kind of like that.
Yeah, and I would argue that you're still tribalistic in the sense that you just caused, like you painted broad aspersions with a broad brush against the progressive left. So I think that clearly your analysis, like you have tribalistic tendencies too.
No,
right?
I don't. None.
No.
I think there are plenty of progressive, plenty of liberals that don't use the greedy racist stereotype. So, but I do think a lot of them do. Yeah.
Okay.
But I think we both agree that on the left and the right, the number one lens at which everyone looks at the world is through tribalism first. I'm not just saying that that's just the left. Obviously, the right does that just as much.
Well, let me ask you. You said that you don't consider yourselves conservative or right wing. Does that mean you consider yourselves left wing, or what do you consider yourselves?
We're enlightened centrists. We're taking the label back, baby.
We're
enlightened.
That's hard. That's hard to define because a lot of people think of centrist as like fence sitter. I don't think of it that way. I think commonly people have political positions that are both on left and right are centrists. A lot of people call themselves center right because they have more right wing positions than left wing positions. A lot of people call themselves center left because they have more left wing positions than right wing positions. So I don't necessarily see it as fence sitting because obviously, like, I'm pro-choice, I'm pro-progressive taxation. Like, I'm not sitting on the fence on any of these topics. So I'm willing to take
is it the case that for every progressive or left-wing view you have a corresponding right-wing view? Like, Is it like 1-to-1, or do you think
We have a
it's
chart.
closer?
Yes, we're not allowed to have left-wing views
Well,
unless
this is
a
why I was going
right-wing
to
view
say
that's equally matching.
I think it's more accurate to call us team truth because we're more interested in what the truth is, and a lot of times political perspectives get in the way of deciphering what actually reality is. So that's why we try to avoid the tribalism.
I saw on Twitter earlier that it was in response to Brianna Wu or something like that, when she said, if you did a survey of all your tweets, your content, do you criticize the left or the right more? So you said the left, Adam, I think. So if you're team truth and you spend more time fixated on, I guess, critiquing the dishonesty of the left, do you think the left is more dishonest than the right?
Well, I feel that since I am on the left, I'm more triggered by the left doing this because they're literally making me look bad. Like when Michael Knowles does something insane, I think, oh, thank God I'm not a conservative. That guy's a lunatic. But when someone on the left does something insane, I think, oh man, this makes me look terrible. So that's why I spend more time criticizing people on the left. When Brianna Wu says something wacky on our show, it makes me think, oh, this makes the left look bad. I'm for maximizing individual freedom. That's why I consider myself a liberal. I consider liberalism as the pursuit of individual rights, trying to do this balancing act of making society cohere and giving the individual as much personal autonomy as possible. So that's kind of where my political leanings are. So I have to examine each individual case, doing this balancing act of, is this going to be good for individual rights? Is it going to make society collapse? Is it going to be the end of Western civilization? So that's kind of the way I look at things. Is that helpful?
Yeah, it's helpful. Like I said, I mean, obviously, I don't have much experience with you. I've listened to some of your shows. I think I've commented on some of your stuff on Twitter. We've had some back and forth.
Josiah does not super understand who Adam is, but Destiny, wouldn't you relate, even though it's your editor who referred to Adam and Sitch as right-wing hosts? Do you kind of relate to people just assuming that you're a conservative in disguise?
Yeah, I mean, it happens. For me, I'm less interested in the political labels. I just go by policy positions. If people accuse me of being like a conservative or whatever, I'll just say sure, and then just like talk about the issues. I think it's kind of because the political labels they don't very neatly map onto a lot of our beliefs these days. So rather than try to obsess over like who's conservative, who's liberal, who's whatever, I just say, whatever.
Do you think it's easier to grow a platform from that perspective? I mean, you already have a huge platform and you grew it as a loud and proud progressive.
Did I grow it as a progressive? I mean, my beliefs align with progressives, but I feel like most of my platform growth has come, I think, generally because people appreciate my independence. I think most of my major political growth has happened in that time because I think like if you wanted to just watch a progressive, I don't know why you would watch me over like say Hassan, because Hassan is going to give you better and more consistent progressive takes probably than I will, because I'm going to have a lot of takes, whether it's Rittenhouse or self-defense or property rights or anti-riots or whatever, that are probably going to fall outside the scope of what a lot of progressives online will advocate for. So I think it just kind of depends.
But don't you differ on those positions because the progressives are getting the facts of the situation incorrect, and you are more interested in following the facts?
Yeah, but that's just explaining why then I don't know if I necessarily identify strongly as a progressive. Like, come here for progressive takes. Because if you come to me just for progressive takes, you're probably going to be a little bit disappointed a lot of the time.
Well, I've been watching you for a long time, obviously, and I feel like you have moved more towards kind of understanding the right wing and not really straw manning their arguments. And like, I do see you as kind of a force for good in the space in doing that. So, but I do feel like there was a time when you were maybe less considerate of other people's political beliefs. So,
yeah, I mean, like I definitely have taken a really hard turn towards trying to be empathetic towards people, for sure.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, I do come off as like very empathetic towards conservatives, usually because I'm treating them like children. But yeah, I mean, that's been kind of like my stated explicit political goal as of recently, is to be that, yeah.
I mean, I think you can take empathy too far, like, Mr. Girl and stuff like that. But I do like that you are empathetic of some of the conservatives. Definitely not the greedy racists. I think obviously none of us are in favor of them, but there are plenty of.
Wait. I feel like there's a tweet or something I missed. Who are the greedy racists?
Well, do you disagree that a lot of progressives have this stereotype of conservatives as greedy racists? So when they say right
for
wing,
sure they do.
Okay.
But I mean, conservatives do the same towards like progressives, as calling them like fucking groomer child molesters.
Sure, totally they do.
Yeah.
But I think the greedy racist stereotype is more pervasive on the left. But you do have on the right. I completely admit
wait. Compared to the groomer narrative on the right?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, that's just absolutely completely not true.
Okay. Well, convince.
It's become like if you're not convinced already, like I feel like the groomer narrative has literally become like the de facto unifying position of the entire conservative party right now. Maybe not even necessarily because they hate LGBT people or whatever, just because they have literally nothing else to talk about. I do agree that these labels get thrown around too much and it ends up being a little bit damaging. But I also think there's a weird game that happens where because they get thrown out too much and because they are damaging when they're thrown out too much, people act like you can't use them ever. Like, I get really triggered when people get really upset about that MAGA, the MAGA conservative thing that Biden said. It is a fact that there is a, like, I hate to use this word, but there is a, like, fascist swell that exists under Donald Trump. But there are people that are desiring a single leader to overthrow the American, like, republic. Like that's undeniable. Now, I don't know how else to say that. There are no nice ways or nice words, but like that is true. It's also true that Donald Trump said that somebody couldn't preside on a court case because his parents came from Mexico. It's also true that Donald Trump is on record asking Giuliani how he can ban Muslims from entering the United States, right? I agree that these racist labels get thrown around too often, but I feel like sometimes people run a little bit too much cover for conservatives by saying they're thrown around too often, when sometimes conservatives are acting in ways that need to be called out, especially in regards to MAGA.
Two things can be true simultaneously, and I'm sure you would both agree, I hope, and I would like to ask if you do agree with that simultaneously progressives can be at times cavalier with the word racist, and yet sometimes conservatives can be racist. Yeah.
We call out racist. Wait. Hold on, let me just finish. We call out racists all the time. We debate racists. I fucking can't stand racists, okay? And a lot of people, I feel like people will play this game like they're just joking around, and I think these people are legitimately racist. When we call them out, our audience gets upset about it. They say the same thing you're talking about, Destiny. I totally agree with you. They're like, oh, you're being too harsh on them, Adam. And I'm like, it's so obvious what's going on here. They're gaslighting the shit out of me. This person's a fucking racist. So I agree with you, but it waters down the term when you're calling somebody who, accidentally, did an inconsiderate joke and has not shown any sign of racism in their entire life. You're trying to cancel them as a racist. Like, let's save it for the people who are legitimately racist. Yeah, let's.
I think that when you're talking about, that the term, this is part of what we talked about, why it's dangerous to throw around the term racist and fascist so liberally or freely, is that it creates the cry wolf syndrome, where then when you actually have someone being racist or being authoritarian, no one will listen to it anymore. And we are afraid, and I am bothered by a lot of things that Trump did regarding trying to get the states to overthrow the slate of electors and all these things. And I think that all this happens, and the reason that there is, or not the whole reason, but a big reason why there is this fervor behind Trump and behind this, destroy all the institutions, destroy the deep state and all this stuff, is because the overuse of these terms, the overuse of the attacks on Donald Trump. The second he became president, he was attacked for every single thing. When he had enough flaws, enough things that were realistic to attack, but if you attack him on everything, even when he doesn't deserve it, the people just lose faith. They don't believe in anything in the media. They think everything's corrupt. And that's what opens the door, in my opinion, for people to kind of turn to Donald Trump and say, hey, we do need this strong man to kind of come in here and wipe everything out because nothing can be trusted at all.
Yeah, I don't think we disagree with it. But we also have to be able to call them out, like, when it happens.
And also to say that that's not justified. While we might be able to understand the reactions of some people in Trump's orbit, it certainly doesn't excuse it. Oh, they were mean to Trump, therefore it justifies his attempts to overturn the election. There's a chasm between these two things, which needs to be called out.
It's interesting that, and I don't know if you're accusing me of this or you're just pointing it out, that whenever I say what I just said, people turn to the justification thing. I'm not saying anything's justified. I'm just explaining like the process of which this happens descriptively. It's obviously not justified.
for everybody listening in to be able to hear the tweet that brought us together. So this was tweeted from Adam's account.
Oh, I brought it up. Yeah, I was
let Adam read it. Adam, read it.
Oh, do you want to read it, Adam?
No, go ahead, Chaeiry. Come on.
Okay.
Yeah, you're a better reader.
Okay, well, the tweet. It's ironic that most of the political pundits who want big change, like Hassan, Vosh, Majority Report, David Pacman, spend all day vilifying the people they will have to win over to achieve that change. You can't get big things done without the support of conservative voters. If you really want things like higher wages for the working class or universal health care, it's dumb to demonize conservative voters just so you can grow a progressive platform. Stop actively criticizing Wall Street for its fixation on short-term gains while you do the exact same thing with your own social media accounts.
Oh, man.
Go ahead, Adam.
What a great
amazing.
tweet.
Who wrote that? That's look, I have a tear in my eye. So it sounds like you agree with that because you're saying it's not effective to demonize him. Look, what you just said, and this is why I'm constantly being confused with a conservative or being accused of being a conservative, because I speak conservative. I have conservative friends, and I can hear what you're saying from their perspective. And I think this is why we have a lot of conservatives in our audience, even though every single one of those conservatives knows that we're dirty, dirty liberals. They listen to us because we have respect for them. And everything that you said comes off as conservatives are childish, stupid, naive, delusional people who constantly vote against their own interests. It's like what's the problem with Kansas movie just downloaded from your brain right into this live stream, and everyone could pick up on it. Everyone was like, this guy doesn't understand me.
You know what's hilarious about that? And I guess the first thing I'd want you to do is tell me, what am I wrong about, number one? But number two, there again, this goes to the strange double standard, I think, which is baked into your worldview, which is...
What is my
you're
worldview?
Upset. Wait a minute. Let me finish. So you're seemingly outraged that I pointed out the fact that most of the poorest, least educated, least healthy, most federally dependent states in this country are led by Republicans, which is a fact. But when Donald Trump and Republican leaders talk shit about California, Chicago, D.C., where's your outrage? This is coming from people who actually have power. It's almost like Republicans get a blank check to demonize every progressive, every Democrat, blue cities, blue states. They're all shitholes. People are fleeing from them, whatever. And we just skip over that. It's almost like baked into the price of politics. Like it's okay for Republicans and their surrogates in the media to say all kinds of terrible things about not just specific Democrats, but the Democratic Party writ large.
So sooner or later, someone has to put the guns down. Okay, I am not in favor of Republicans demonizing Democrats in the exact same way. And it goes to my tweet. If you want to build large coalitions, if you want to get something like UBI passed, okay, something that I think that we will need in the future, you are going to have to get buy-in from both conservatives and progressives, and you're going to have to find a way to pitch these policies that is non-offensive to both sides. So all I am saying is you are saying things that are very offensive to the conservative ear. You probably don't even know that you're doing it. I understand that. Look, plenty of conservatives say things that are offensive to progressive ears. I understand that as well. So I'm
just blown away that the fuck your feelings party, that you're so worried about the fuck your feelings party. I remember when Trump won in 2016, it was fuck your feelings snowflake, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And then I also remember when Trump lost in 2020. I remember this vividly. It was on a Fox News. It was one of the Fox News panels, and one of the guest commentators said, listen, Trump supporters have just been dealt a devastating defeat. We really need the Democrats to show some grace or whatever.
We're just getting into a whataboutism off. I don't think it's helpful. I really don't.
Well, maybe you should be egalitarian in your criticism then, because where is this tweet but for the right? That's where you lose me, because both sides are trying to win elections and affect policy of some kind. Now, I agree, the Republican policy...
If you want me to tweet this out with Michael Knowles and And
It might be
the
helpful because all the
equivalent, I'm
people-
more than happy to do it. Okay, that's like,
I don't understand why it's
done.
not your instinct, especially if you say that you have a right-leaning
look,
audience.
Because
and
I
you're-
am on the
Wait,
left.
wait,
I
wait,
already
wait,
said that.
Wait,
Look,
wait.
a conservative doesn't give a fuck
listen,
about
you
what
can't,
I feel.
Wait, you point to like a single tweet. If you were to go back on my Twitter timeline, you'd see that one of the tweets I made a couple of days ago was all about how the narrative around the
I
Biden
did see that.
investigation
The Hunter
and
Biden
the Devin,
stuff. I loved
and
it,
the
buddy.
Devin Archer testimony was bullshit. And if you actually read the Devin Archer testimony,
I
in my
did.
opinion, it's evidence that he didn't fire Shokin.
Yeah,
for
it's
any sort of
exculpatory evidence, 100%.
right. I mean, it's just you're like painting this weird view of Adam that is not at all not realistic at all.
number
in terms
one,
of what
Adam
we talk
isn't
about
you.
on our show at all. We constantly criticizing the right on our show, much to a lot of right wingers in our audience getting mad at us. We've when we covered the January 6 hearings, I think we probably lost like 500 or 1,000 live viewers permanently from our audience.
I'm more interested in what the truth is. Like I'm doing this because I find it interesting to talk to people. I feel like truth springs from debate among friends. And so much of this space is debate among bitter fucking enemies. And no truth is coming out of it. And it's disparaging. It's demoralizing. I don't like it.
We're arguing a lot on a topic that I don't think we necessarily disagree on. I'm trying to figure out where the disagreement. I think we all agree that you probably shouldn't just lambast people as racist. I think we all agree on that.
Yeah, we do.
But that sometimes it might be appropriate to use the word, which I think all of us agree with that.
Yes, totally.
Yep.
Agreed.
So I don't know what. Yeah, I'm not entirely sure.
I don't watch Hassan, but I have consumed quite a bit of Packman, Cedar, and Vosh. Do they really vilify conservative voters? I know they vilify Republican politicians. That's why I was just looking for clarity. Is that what you mean, or do you literally mean just the average Republican voter?
Wait, you're gonna say that with Vosh? You're not even gonna throw him out as like?
Well,
the
I was gonna give you an example with Vosh, but I would like you to offer some clarity on that.
What was the question again?
Do they just vilify Republican politicians, or did you mean they actually vilify Cedar, Packman, and Vosh vilify Republican voters?
Vosh vilifies conservatives all the time. Like he literally uses the greedy racist stereotype.
Right. With respect, I'm sorry, just to clarify, I understand conservative, but conservative politicians, like I think it's okay to talk shit about Republican politics.
No,
Gotcha.
he uses Vosh uses the greedy racist stereotype for conservatives all the time. Like I think that's the only stereotype he has.
I mean, can you vilify the politicians that people are voting for in droves without vilifying the people voting for them? I'm not sure that distinction
question.
even exists.
If that's the case, then I think we're fucked, because somebody like Trump, who basically has a stranglehold on the Republican Party, he's the nominee by a clear mile. I guess it depends on what you mean by vilify. How can I call Trump for what he is in a way that to your satisfaction would not cast aspersions on those who vote for him?
I think you can criticize all the policies, all the things that you think are dangerous, and I think if you, or anyone, if Packman or Hassan or any of these people would explain and understand why and how people on the right are motivated to vote for the things that they vote for, and the answer is not just racism or something negative, and understand where right-wing moral principles come from and where the moral foundations that make up the conservative movement in America, if they were to understand any of this, but they don't, and explain any of this, but they don't, then I don't think we'd be where we are. But I think if all you do is you sit there and you vilify right-wing politicians, then you're obviously going to say, well, the people that vote for them obviously support, these policies. These racist, horrible policies. Right?
I'm not entirely sure, and Stephen, feel free to jump in any time. I'm not entirely sure that tracks, because I don't think Republicans, even as a party, are particularly policy motivated these days. Number one. Number two, you said, if you attack his policies, what if I wanted to attack his character? What if I wanted to...
you can attack his character. You can attack his person, his character, his policies, whatever. That's not what I'm saying.
How on earth can you attack somebody's character, person, and policies without it feeling like you're demonizing or vilifying them?
Yeah, that's where I'm confused.
No. You can vilify and talk about these politicians all you want, okay? What I'm saying is that if all you do is talk about how all these politicians on one side, if all you do is talk about all the politicians on the right are racist, or all you do is talk about how the politicians on the left are socialist groomers, okay? And you don't actually explore why it is that left-wing voters are voting for who they vote for, or why right-wing voters are voting for who they vote for, obviously you're going to be saying that the people voting for them are in favor of either racism or grooming, right? I mean, you would acknowledge that, like, when someone on the right talks about how all these left-wing politicians are groomers, what does that say about the people voting for those politicians?
I suppose you could read an implication there that the supporters are themselves.
You suppose? I mean, I would.
Well, I'm just
know.
well, I'm just imagining.
Do you think the people supporting Trump go in and say, "I'm voting for this guy because he's a fascist"?
I think that's a separate question.
Wait. No, do they do it because of that? No, but that's usually just because they're too uneducated to know what fascism is. If you were to describe fascism in other words, yeah, I think the majority, I think 90% of Trump's voter base. If you were to say, do you think it's really important that we have a really strong leader that sometimes takes the reins away from like the corrupt institutions of our government and takes the country in the direction that we really needed to go because he knows what's right for this country? I think 90% of Trump voters plus would say yes, right? You could describe fascism in other words and they'd vote for him, but yeah, they're not going to say, I vote for him.
I don't agree with that definition of even authoritarianism, because you're not even saying like abolish the government except for the president, have the president be the sole source of power.
You don't need to abolish the government. You can have a puppet government. You can have a government that technically functions, but the president is allowed to tell the vice president, hey, I need you to overrule the vote for the presidency. Or you can have a government that has institutions, but the president is allowed to fire and replace the heads of the DOJ, the FBI, the CIA anytime they do something it doesn't like, right? You can
also trying to expand that power too, as we know that Trump is trying to do.
I think if you would ask the average Trump voter and say, do you want an authoritarian government, or do you want Trump to be the sole source of power with no other branches of government, really? I don't think most average Trump voters would be in favor of that.
Really?
I think you might be able to phrase that.
The ones that talk about abolishing all of the executive fucking departments, the ones that talk about how corrupt Congress is, the ones that don't like, well, now they like the Supreme Court, but the ones that are all about like states' rights, whatever, I disagree. I think that if you were to present in nice enough terms the idea of like an authoritarian leader, I think most, not Republicans, most Trump supporters would absolutely go for that. Absolutely.
Hi! You just listened to a clip from the Sitch Adam Show. Most of the time we stream Sunday at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern, and we stream during the week. Come join us. You guys are going to love it. It'll be great.